Max Kislowitz is the co-founder and product designer of Bala, the design-forward fitness brand he built alongside his wife, Natalie. What started as a side hustle turned into a brand with a cult following, celebrity investors, and products now found in homes and gyms around the world. In this episode, we dive into what it's really like to build a business with your spouse. Max shares how they navigated decision-making, divided responsibilities, and kept their relationship strong while scaling Bala into a household name. Welcome, guys. This is unique. I'm way more used to just having Natalie here, but I'm glad Max got dragged out of bed today. So I want to talk a little bit about the Bala story. Max, stop making me laugh.
I literally am just sitting here.
That was like Zach.
I want to talk about the Bala story, obviously, but also let's start with how you and Nat met.
Sure. So Nat and I met going on about 10 years ago now, and we were both working in advertising at an agency called 72 and Sunny. And I always kind of talk about agencies as being necessarily anonymous, right? They're making ads for the likes of Starbucks or Google or the NFL. And Nat and I worked on accounts like these at 72, but the ethic at ad agencies is just to create as cool a culture as possible and to work you into the ground. It's very tech-like, but without the tech compensation. But as a result, you end up becoming very good friends and partying with those folks that you...
Beer and wine on tap.
...work with. Yeah, beer and wine on tap. Very cool mid-century offices. And in that environment, Nat and my paths crossed. And actually, it was on a relatively... kind of like important day in 72 and Sunny's history. I think it was their 10-year anniversary party that Nat and I had kind of seen one another. I think we knew one another by name, but never had actually spoken. And they threw this epic all-day party, and Nat and I effectively ended up spending the entire day and night together. And finally, when I muster the courage to kind of go in and kiss her, she recoils a bit and says, "I have a boyfriend."
Tease.
Right?
Damn.
Let's hope he's not listening.
and I'm going to move to Texas tomorrow
With him.
to be with him.
This is too scandalous.
No. Oh,
Okay.
wait. So he wasn't in
I just
LA.
flirted with Max. Like, you never flirted
Wait,
with
was
somebody
this
with
even
a
in LA?
boyfriend? This was in LA.
Okay.
This episode is not going to go well for you. Yeah, so no, we met and the point is we met and we immediately gravitated toward one another. Natalie did end up leaving for the better part of a year, and nearly a year later returned back to 72.
Be with that guy?
We broke up. We got engaged and broke up. And then I returned back
Because
to
of
LA.
Max.
Not because of Max. That was like, we flirted
Because
a
of
little.
Max.
He's making it seem dramatic. Flirted a little, got engaged, broke up, came back, worked at 72 again. And this
he
is
was still
when,
there.
Yeah, and this is when Max and I, at the next party, it was their 11th year anniversary.
Oh my
I'm not even
God.
kidding, I'm not even making this up. It's like, we just were like, oh, okay, I just started working here again. I actually like you. Let's go on a date or something. And then we fell in love.
So you didn't keep in touch in
No,
between
we didn't
all.
keep in
It
touch
was literally
at
just
all.
that one night.
Yeah,
Did you think about her for the
obviously,
entire
yeah,
year?
it meant a lot to him. To me, I barely remembered it, but
I'll admit that I did think about her a lot. It felt as if there was a pull toward a person that I'd never otherwise experienced. And, it felt like a miss, like a real, like an existential miss.
Yeah.
So when
that's
she
fair.
came back, it felt like maybe it wasn't a miss, actually. And there was this incredible sort of like magnetism toward one another. And, I get that this is a business podcast, but in the context of romance, you have that sentiment of it's either a hell yeah or a hell no. And this was sort of the first hell yeah after a series of, I was a serial monogamist, right? So with Nat, it felt different, and I'd felt comfortable, looking toward the future in a way that didn't, make my skin crawl.
I
That's
agree.
nice.
And
What a
that's
compliment.
Really sweet.
You did not
there was
make
a
his
pull.
skin crawl.
I agree. There was a pull. That's nice.
I think also like that instance where you guys like kind of had this moment and it was taken away from you for a year definitely like added to it.
Yes.
Oh, it was all drama when she came back. It was like, oh man,
this is on.
You guys start dating after this kind of year hiatus. When do you decide to start a company together? And I guess like you just said you knew right away she was kind of the one, so maybe there wasn't that many concerns, but most people would be like, is this a good idea? We're at the fun part of dating. Like, is this going to get in the way? And also like, why am I starting a company with somebody that I don't know how far in you were, but don't really know.
Yes. That's
like
fair.
people start companies with, or like get co-founders out of friends who they've known for years, let alone I'm just starting to date this person. And I guess that's a question for both of you.
I would say that our starting a company wasn't all that intentional. So, we'd met, obviously we'd had this year hiatus, and then we'd started dating. And early in our courtship, I was sort of burnt out on advertising in 72, more specifically, but I was kind of ready to change my life or, shake things up. Mm-hmm. And I think one night I sort of drunkenly and early in our courtship said, Nat, would you ever want to travel open-endedly? Because it was something that I'd been kicking around in that like classic millennial existential angst. And she called my bluff and said, yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And so where I was really maybe just trying to seem like interesting in the absence of anything all that interesting, she was like, okay, cool, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
So within 3.5, 4 months of first starting dating, we had one-way tickets booked to Tokyo and ended up traveling and
quit our jobs. That's intense.
Yeah. And then we started doing all the things that are like really serious and sort of meaningful changes to our lives to make this thing a reality. But it was in that context that we started talking about business concepts. So it wasn't as if I always say of Bala that we didn't start it with this beautifully designed deck that was like so eloquently articulating how we were going to change the world. We didn't see it that way. Mm-hmm. In fact, we were just singularly focused on redesigning and reintroducing wrist and ankle weights. And it was a year plus later that we'd realized that no one had done for fitness equipment and accessories what had been done for every adjacency in boutique fitness and athleisure. And meanwhile, you have this incredibly sort of psychologically charged space in fitness equipment, in fitness in general, and how people perceive movement and lapse into and out of their routines and how it makes folks feel, so that design and quality of materials can actually make that whole thing more approachable and inviting rather than the way it's typically treated, which can often feel really intimidating. So Nat and I didn't start there. And some folks do. Some folks are like, I'm gonna invent the way to call a taxi on your phone, right? Mm-hmm. And it's quite clear from the outset, wasn't the case for us. So it didn't feel as committal as, I wasn't putting a business ring on Nat's like proverbial finger.
Our vision board said side hustle, and it just said sell 10 units a day. Like that was like our dream at the beginning, 10 units a day.
Yeah, nice. I guess if you're living in Asia and just taking it easy, maybe you don't need more than 10 units a day.
Exactly. That was our vision.
You know what? I will say of those like kind of micro goals, too often folks say, let's hit $1 million. Let's hit $2 million. But there are steps toward that, right? And consistently selling 10, 50, 100 units a day were real milestones, and they'd felt like real momentum in the earliest stages. And now we're selling much more than that. But I think that ethic, still rings true.
Mm-hmm.
I think also like you need to define a goal based off of what is achievable for your own mindset. Like if you think 1 million is big, you're never going to get there. Like you have to set something that feels lower and feels achievable. Otherwise you're like this, I'm just doing actions that don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. Right. And there's also no positive reinforcement to success because that goal is so far away.
Absolutely. And look, even if you put like the biggest imaginable goal on a piece of paper, it really is just the short form of the 10,000 things you need to do in order to achieve it.
Yeah.
And so we just sort of, I think, celebrated some of those like earlier milestones.
Yeah. I mean, even getting to 10 units a day, like you have to hit that, you know, maybe you hit that in a couple months and then you hit the next goal.
Yeah. It's funny that you say like Natalie like called you on it or kind of called your bluff, because like now that I know Natalie, like you can't put anything in front of her that she won't like be like, yeah, let's do it. So
great.
It's good.
No,
You're
but that
like
is my
always down to do something. I know,
but it's also a flaw because it's like
totally
not incredibly,
agree, but it's also like a huge, I think, like positive, one of the most positive things about you, which most people don't have, is they think of all the reasons not to do it. So like now I'm like, when I put stuff in front of Natalie, like I think I'm like, does this make sense? Like, should we do this? Because Natalie's gonna be down. Like she's got so much energy to bring, and just be like, yeah, let's try it. Let's do it.
I mean, ahead of meeting Nat, when I lived in New York in my 20s, you know, on a monthly basis, I would meet with like a specific set of friends. We'd drink and we'd riff business ideas, and we had like pages and pages of ideas, hundreds of ideas, and those never went anywhere. Yeah. And then Nat and I are somewhere in Asia riffing on business ideas, and 7 years later that business is, you know, the product of Nat's sort of insistence that we do anything that pops into your head.
Love that. Okay.
I think this is a good segue into like, I know your guys' story, obviously, and there's some like very epic rises and very epic falls. Can you talk me through, okay, you know, you guys have started this business, it's doing well, you've done Shark Tank, things feel like they're really blowing up, and then things kind of take a different direction. Can you talk me through what happened and how you handled it, especially as a couple, and what kind of roles both of you guys take as co-founders?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I suppose like from Bala's infancy as this back at the napkin idea, the growth that we'd experienced in sort of year one of the business felt slow and sustainable and exciting in that, you know, I think we'd went from a couple $100K in the first few months of the preceding calendar year, and then we were on pace to do 2 million when we went on Shark Tank. And the following year was, you know, the first year of the pandemic. It was March 2020 that, you know, the world effectively shut down and folks were looking for ways to stay fit from home. And so Bala benefited from this, the stars kind of aligning, sort of, you know, tabling the tragic circumstances of the pandemic with our appearing on Shark Tank in late February, the world shutting down in late March, and we went from 2 million in sales to 16 million in sales in 2020. And then we grew even further in 2021. And then in 2022, we'd felt like, oh, we now have a track record of continued growth. Our projections that we'd bought inventory against when supply chains were like really grinding to a halt because of the sort of broader macroeconomic factors and its influence on supply chain, you know, we were buying against growth. And so we put a ton of money in inventory. And then we weren't selling at the rate that we'd predicted. And
you guys hadn't really taken funding either.
No, none. Well, it's Shark Tank.
Shark Tank is meaningful funding. But the business was growing at a rate that that funding could not support. Right. And, you know, with any consumer products business, like your biggest line item is inventory. And so when we did 21 million in 2021, we'd figured we'd do, you know, approximately 30% more than that. And the opposite was true. We did 30, 40% less. And things got very uncomfortable very quickly. I should say that in the context of that growth, you also look for ways to, you look to your like brand peers and you go, what are they doing that we could also be doing? And I think at the time, pop-ups were a big thing. And we said, we're going to do a pop-up in the zip code where most folks buy Bala. And obviously that's an easy Shopify pull. And so we went to Manhattan, we went to Soho, and we did a pop-up that was gorgeous, won design awards, was incredibly exciting for us. Lost a little bit of money.
I mean, but it was also like, it was next to like Nike and Aloe. Like we were like, we're going in like we're VC backed, you know? Like it was quite insane.
$50,000 a day in rent.
Like insane.
But I should say that we were actually, you know, and I don't know how naive this is even now, we sort of said, how do we run a VC-backed playbook without VC backing?
Yeah.
Which obviously there's a flaw in the logic because you don't have the VC funding. But it was like, okay, marketing, partnerships, product expansion, building a team. And I should double down on the building the team bit. Through 2021 and the early half of 2022, we'd said, let's build a team because revenue will correspond to headcount. And I think that's one of like the worst lies that are
we've been told,
and it's prolific, right?
Yeah, it's like you need the revenue and then you back it up with the headcount.
Absolutely.
100%.
Or you look to external partners to sort of have like a team-based approach without the team. And so anyway, you know, the back half of 22 was very, very uncomfortable because we had a ton of cash tied up in inventory that wasn't selling at the rate we'd needed it to support that team and those investments in a pop-up, in a brand refresh, a new website. You know, we were reinvesting in this brand that started on a napkin and now had the opportunity to, I think, be like a really meaningful contributor to this otherwise really conventional category in fitness that tends to be hypermasculine, all black, everything, and sort of contribute to folks feeling unfit and unmotivated in a lot of ways because it's awfully intimidating. And we just got over our skis. I mean, that's the headline. And as a result, we had to kind of look at one another and say, holy fucking shit. Like we need to undo some of these things. Everything we can undo, we now have to.
And how did that come about?
Well, we basically, we had scaled to like 30 people with like the store people. And basically at that point, we overbought on inventory. And we can talk about like deferring to the experts because I think there's stuff to talk about there. But basically, we owed a lot of money to a collector. And we essentially said, we need to hold on to this brand. And how are we going to do that? We're going to look at every area of the business. We're going to pull every dollar we're spending and we're going to say, do we need that? Is the return on investment? If not, scratch it. Like we cut every cost we possibly could. And then we had to look at team and we said, employees are really expensive.
Yeah.
We can't afford this. We need to pay back our debt at a rapid rate. And so we started, unfortunately, doing layoffs, and then we had to do more layoffs. And we actually ended up going back down from 30-ish to Max, myself, and our current chief brand officer, Brooke, and we all took pay cuts. And that was the hardest thing we've had to do on the business.
Yeah. Had you guys ever experienced firing somebody before, let alone entire teams?
Not to that extent, no.
I mean,
in advertising, I've had to fire folks, but it's with the support of the organization.
Yeah.
It's different when you're the founder of this company and you've made decisions that have contributed, even in the context of these like really unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, there were moves I would absolutely take back, right? And at the end of the day, you're responsible for those moves.
Yeah.
You know, and so
I mean, we've all been there.
And it's horrible.
And months prior, I had just hired these people.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yes.
like I think that was happening across the board. Like it was such a like post-COVID peak. And then you're like selling people the dream, starting new R&D projects. And then suddenly just from one day to the next, it's like, whoa,
And
actually we need to like buckle down.
And I'm conflict avoidant. You guys both know that. So up until that point, if there's a tough
for this edit,
if there's a tough conversation to be had, Max is having it. If we have to fire someone, Max is doing it.
even if they report to you.
Well, then it became so. And this is like, you know, if we had a tough legal conversation or breaking up with a partner, whatever, something that he could handle. I'm just conflict avoidant. And again, so I avoided firing these people, avoid it. But then it became this point where there was like the next round was like all people I was managing. So like I had to fire 7 people in one day. I like worked with my leadership coach on it to do that because it was such an obstacle for me to do that. And because Max had usually shouldered that in the past. And so now I can have tough conversations. It's a practice, but that was one of the toughest things I've ever had to do.
It's definitely an incredible learning though. I had to fire, I think it was 19 people in one go. And in the UK, there's laws around how many people you can fire at a time. And so you had to like read a script that lawyer gave you.
Oh, we had a script too. Yeah.
It was
and awful. You can't have any emotion to it.
You're like, this doesn't feel like you care about these people. Like it feels so much worse.
You have to be cold because they're going to sue you. And
well,
some did.
Folks don't talk about this, but like firing someone or parting ways with an employee is not the way it's depicted in movies.
Yeah.
Right. You're not able to articulate what worked, what didn't, and the degree to which it's unfortunate. It has to be really clinical, and because you put yourself at risk of retaliation, even if your heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
And clearly, even now, some 3 years later, Nat and I still feel terribly about the way things went down, but it was the only move left to make. And I think even at that time, given that Nat and I are married and are partners, Nat wanted to white knuckle the team to the end. And I was trying, because I enjoy chess. I'm probably pretty mediocre at it, but I was like, to the extent that all the business moves we can make are pieces on a chessboard, like we don't have winnable moves keeping this team intact.
Yeah.
And so it just became the principle by which we needed to stand by. And as a result, we went very, very lean. And fortunately, the sort of fitness landscape started to stabilize. And now the business is growing again. And the team has grown a bit. It will never grow to the size it was once. And that's kind of where we're at.
I mean, firing those people saved the business. It did. We would not be here if we held on any longer. And now we have a comeback story. This is going to be our best year yet on Bala. If we would not have done that, Bala wouldn't be around today.
Yeah.
We would probably had to sell it for parts. We wouldn't be involved.
So that's what being a business owner is. Like it's making those calls. Did you guys have debtors who were like knocking on your door?
We had one in particular, and yes, they were knocking on our door. It was time. It was overtime to pay them.
They were knocking on my door.
Exactly, because he dealt with the hard stuff.
I befriended, I would say debtors, collectors. I feel like maybe we're using these words a little too interchangeably. We had a lender with whom we were delinquent on our repayment, but we proactively managed that relationship. I had hundreds of them, if you could rank the most uncomfortable conversations you've had in your lives, most of them were in this period, right? Where I was talking to our suppliers to whom we owed money. I was talking to our lenders to whom we owed money. And I was really, really transparent with everything. And I think that for the folks that are evasive in those scenarios, they'll come after you. But I kind of came after them instead. And I said, this is what repayment looks like for us. Like, what leniency do you have? And I didn't do it one time over the sort of 18 months that this was relevant. I did it like weekly. I did it anytime I had a good update, I'd share it. Anytime I'd have a bad update, I'd share it. And it was the only way to navigate through it, because there was a real scenario where the contract you'd signed allows them to take over if shit hits the fan to the extent that it had. And so, it was wildly uncomfortable to get to a place where, fortunately, now we work with lenders that are kind of elated to give us money because we're now growing again.
Yeah.
And I should say, I should just kind of like name it. Like, people don't talk about this enough,
Yeah,
right? There are
agreed.
those companies that only ever grow.
Yeah.
And then there are those companies that grow and then contract and then grow again and contract again and grow again. And that's okay also. You know, when you look at like
the majority actually though,
Totally.
of companies, like there's always a middle of ups and downs. And the reality is it could happen to you guys again, like probably not a down to that level because you're a much bigger business, but it will continuously change. And there's
Totally.
so much that is happening within the world that affects if people want to exercise or competition or whatever it might be, right?
Or tariffs, like
Tariffs.
Yeah.
things out of your control. I think you're like, now I just have such a perspective that we're in it for the long game. Like we just want to be the last one standing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're in it for a profitable business that helps people move.
And do you guys feel like talk to me about going through something like that whilst being a couple? Like, do you think it was affecting your relationship? Were you still going on dates and like having sex? Because I'd be like, don't fucking touch me.
I think there was a little of don't fucking touch me because it was just like, it was stressful at home. It was stressful at work.
Yeah.
It was easy to get like irritated with one another. Like, you want to do this, I want to do that.
you seem a little irritated right now.
Just saying, that was a tough time.
Well, I mean,
At
we
home, too.
haven't talked a ton about just the dynamics of, you know, working with your spouse. And I think Nat and the balance that we ultimately found was in being in as few meetings together as possible, right? That we have like such strict division of labor, even relative to what I would think is true of, you know, founders that aren't married to one another, right?
Yeah.
Co-founders that aren't married to one another. You would expect that we would be closer, not further from one another.
Yeah.
You know, it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nat and I rarely work on the same thing. We're rarely in the same meeting. And during this very challenging time, it required that the both of us were working through all of these really existential issues together.
Yeah, and I think through that we found what worked. I mean, of course we're, you know, we go to the office together sometimes and stuff like that, but we found what really works for us is he owns like product, I own marketing. We update each other. Like I know what's going on in his world and he knows what's going on in my world, but like we divide it so that, again, we're never in the same meeting.
Yeah.
We were in that meeting this week at the office together. We were like, this is very rare for us to be together with you here. And we never even have, you know, exact touch bases on the books because we're married. So we just update each other throughout the day.
Yeah.
It's a funny way of working, but we found it's what works.
Does it
for
leak
us.
into like your home life?
We're talking about Bella all the time.
Yeah.
I will say that because the brand is playful and irreverent and the products are like thoughtfully designed and beautiful, and the partnerships that we're fortunate enough to work on are like fun and cool and exciting, that like I fucking love Bala, and I know Natalie feels similarly. It's also one of the biggest points of stress in my life, but because it's something that I'm excited about, and arguably more excited about now 7-8 years in than on day one. Yeah, we talk about it constantly, just as often as we're talking about our kids or our weekend plans or what we want to like binge watch on Netflix. Yeah. But yeah, it was that way from the very, very early stages of our relationship. So
yeah, it was always like Bala was our baby because when we just started dating, we started, you know, working on the prototype. So like while it didn't take 100% of our time, it was a little part of our time.
Yeah.
Now it's 100%, but it is true. Like it's fun and we enjoy mostly talking about it. We're like, ooh, look at this product. There are times like when the other one doesn't want to talk about it. Like, you know, you kind of come sometimes at the wrong time charged about something that you don't want to talk about.
Yeah. Joseph thinks that my excuse that when I don't want to talk about something is always that it's bad timing. I'm like, well, midnight in bed is generally like bad timing to talk about something. And he's like, that's just your excuse because you don't want to talk about it.
That's what he says to me.
Well, if you say bad timing at midnight and also at 9 a.m. and also at 11 and 2, it's like, maybe it's not the timing.
Yeah.
You guys. Maybe it's not the timing, you guys.
Okay, so how before you guys start a fight, moving on. How, through all of this, like, when do you guys decide, like, oh, let's throw some more chaos into it and have a kid?
Oh my gosh. I think COVID happened. We always knew we wanted a kid.
Yeah.
We had a miscarriage, actually, during like the second year of Bala. And then I think we're always going to try again. And like the timing didn't necessarily matter because we knew we wanted a kid. So I don't think we really overthought that. We just tried again and got Watson.
I think there was a point at which Bala became this side project to this full-time effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it's not as if though we quit our jobs and, developed the concept for Bala whilst on this extended trip, we came back and got jobs.
Yeah.
And we had jobs that supported our lives and the business for a couple of years, right? The romance around like taking the leap, quitting your job to start something speculative is not one I subscribe to. And even when Natalie was working full-time on the business, my day job was effectively supporting the business and our lives. And that was the sort of like seed funding round.
Yeah.
I was getting a paycheck and going into
in
work
advertising.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when Nat and I ultimately made Bala our full-time effort, it wasn't going to be at the expense of every other like thing we wanted for our lives, kids included. So it didn't, like, for sure, I think our lives are absolutely absurd at the moment and so crazy with 3 kids and a business that's growing. But they never felt like they were in conflict with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think COVID was like, this is the time to get pregnant. Even if I'm sweatshopping it on Bala.
Really? Why?
So many people got pregnant during COVID. I felt like it was like, unfortunately you couldn't like drink the wine anymore, which was what we were doing all day and night with our in-laws. But it was like, we're at home.
Yeah.
It just felt like a good time. And I think, after the last instance, we're going to get pregnant again and have the baby. And then when you think about us having the second and the third, that's just crazy.
That is wild.
3 under
when you
4.
Told me you wanted a third, I was like, what? Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
3 under 4. That's
heaven.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, you guys pull it off. At least it looks like it. I don't know what it's like when you get home.
Sort of.
Chaos.
So Nat, you're more of the public-facing founder. How did you guys decide on that? Does it bother you? I mean, knowing you, I feel like it probably doesn't. But yeah, how did that come about? Was it even a discussion, or is it just something that Nat kind of fell into?
There's an just interesting dynamic with like Bala's place in my life, and like as like I don't have any, like, genuinely I have no ego as it relates to Bala. Like, it's this thing that Nat and I started from scratch and has grown and has been adopted by folks in their lives and fitness journeys, and it's amazing, and I'm like so proud of it. But I don't necessarily feel responsible for it, even if I've like kind of been part of every step. And so when Nat had this like obvious and organic opportunity to step out and speak for the brand, it was very clear to me that was to the brand's benefit, and that's all I want, right? And even going on Shark Tank is like, I don't necessarily want to be in front of a camera ever.
Yeah.
But I recognize that was going to be good for the business.
Yeah.
So by having this like detachment from my own ego and really just wanting for it to grow and succeed, it was awesome that Nat has been able to be like more public. I think there is a funny kind of anecdote where whenever I meet like a real Bala enthusiast and I go, oh, actually, I co-founded this business, the joy absolutely falls from their face, and they are just kind of like crestfallen. They're like, this guy? And then sure enough, Nat will walk up, seconds, minutes later, and she's like, and I'm the other co-founder, and they light up. They're so thrilled, because Nat is like very representative of this brand that we've built. So it's awesome. Like, I think kind of amazingly, it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, that's actually good that it doesn't bother you. But I am the Bala customer. It's just he's designed every single
That's
of
what I was gonna
Bala's
say.
products, which is crazy. What were you gonna say?
It's like if a man was starting a bra company,
Yeah.
you know, because it is like it's purely female based from an audience perspective right now. I would say, like, I'm sure there's a growing number of men,
Yeah.
but the reality
Over
is
10%,
I would,
but yeah.
I over 10%.
Yeah.
That is surprising.
Mhm.
I feel like men want.
I mean, it's mostly
men
women
weights.
for sure.
Yeah.
It is interesting that there has been, some of it was deliberate on our part. We said, Natalie, you're great at this. Go forth.
Yeah.
Like, step into the light. But some of it was like folks just editing
Editing
me out.
Yeah.
No,
The agency literally would be like,
No.
let's remove Max from this email and just love
no,
Natalie.
there's like genuinely, it's like on Bala comms, it's been that to some extent, but even in terms of like press coverage and things like that, it's just like, hey, this doesn't suit the narrative all that well.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's obvious to me in terms of like how Bala presents and our audience base, but at the same time, it's a weird phenomenon. Like, let's say you start and build something and someone just says like, oh, well, Lana's not like totally the right image, so we'll just talk about,
Yeah.
this other person that
You're
was
like,
involved.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a bit of a strange phenomenon.
Yeah.
But, it's all intellectual for me. It doesn't
There-
affect
It's cultural though, because right
I
now
was
it's
gonna
female
say,
founder,
yeah.
female founder world, female founder collective. No one cares about a male founder.
Yeah, agree. Like, there's
Sorry.
been enough male founders out there. Like, even when I was raising money, there's so much comms around, like, it's so hard to raise money as a woman. But because it was so hot at a time to be a female founder, I would put that in the subject when I was raising money. Like, or if I wanted PR, I would put, like, female founded Flume.
Yeah.
Like, I
totally.
knew what was converting and what people felt pressure to talk about and felt pressure to invest in. And so I actually used it to my advantage. And
Yeah.
I think it's the same instance, right?
Totally. And I would say now more so than ever, you're not just a fan of a brand, you also know their founding story of a particular kind of brand, right? Like
Yeah.
of a certain scale, but you know the founder as well.
Yeah.
And if you follow a brand, you're likely to also follow their founder,
Yeah.
which is kind of something of a new phenomenon. So
It's like a transparency. It's like you don't want to put your dollars behind someone who doesn't believe what you believe
Yeah.
politically or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to put your dollars behind someone you relate to.
What would you say, like, are you guys aligned on what the future of the brand is? Like, what you want for it? Is this like your life? Like, is this the business, your lifelong company? Do you ultimately want to sell it? Like, what's the goal?
I think a lot of folks start businesses with the intention of exiting them in 3 to 5 to 8 years, right? I don't think there's enough ambition to start enduring businesses and brands that last 10, 20 years, that people even start businesses with that in mind. And so, like we spoke a bit about as it relates to Bala, like, I want Bala to be successful, right? If it's going to be more successful with an eventual acquirer, then that's something we'll consider. I think given the turbulence over the last couple of years and the current trajectory of the business, like, I want to build toward optionality. I want to be the one in the driver's seat that makes the decision alongside Natalie to run this thing forever, or to sell it to someone that can scale it further. That's kind of where I'm at. And that's a product of, not knowing if we were going to make it a month down the road in mid 22.
Yeah.
To kind of seeing some runway ahead of us here.
Should we move on to hot takes? Okay, most shocking thing about working with your partner.
That we don't have touch bases, just us two. Like,
You
we're
never have
talking
check-ins.
all the time, and we used to set up, many times we would set up like a product touch base, or like a Tuesday, like, let's update each other on everything. But since we're married, we just push it because we have other priorities. So we're talking 24/7 about the business.
Yeah.
We don't have formal touch bases, and that is bizarre. I don't think you would find that in any other co-founder relationship.
Yeah, probably not.
I would say the rules of engagement in any other professional setting do not apply. at all whatsoever.
Like you're like
you
in the
touching-
shower. You're in
like
the
you
shower
touching
together.
him all the time on meetings.
I know. We'll be like on a big call, and then I'm like, "Hey, babe," or something. He jumps out of his skin.
Joseph and I won't we join calls with separate like different backgrounds.
That's smart. A lot of times we do that.
Yeah, that is smart. No, or it's like, there are some conversations that you have to kind of like bear down and get serious and say, like, this is the conversation that I need to be, like, a sort of different version of myself to properly navigate.
Yeah.
And Natalie will be like, you're such a dick.
I'm like, you're mean.
I'm like, this is like a necessary sort of like, thing that I need to do.
Nice to have a cheerleader, huh?
I'm like, talk to me nice.
Yeah. She's like, wow, you're so mean. And I'm like, well, anyway.
Would you do it again? Work with your partner or don't? What's your advice? What's your hot take?
Well, I'm not going to have another partner, so yeah, I would.
No, but you could start another company one day and say, actually, I don't want to do it with Max. I would rather do it with a
Well, I
co-founder.
started this with you.
I know, but
working with women, I would say is easier.
Really?
Hot take.
That is a hot take. I would not agree with that.
Well, that's not great considering you were working together.
No, I mean, I have never worked with a man, but I would think that working with a man is easier.
Working with women is easier.
No comment. I would start another business with Natalie, given the sort of early trials and tribulations of working with her on Bala. I think year 1 and 2 were an absolute shit show because we both were sure that we were right when, in fact, neither of us was. We didn't know anything, right? Yeah. And you think you have a point of view on marketing or go-to-market or logistics or ops or cost engineering, whatever it may be, you don't actually know what you're talking about yet in the context of first-time founders as we were. Mm-hmm. But now we're like really good at the things we do that are totally separate from one another. So I would start another business with Natalie. It wouldn't absolutely have to be true that my next business, I know she's always touching me, that, I'll start something with someone else as well. Sure. Yeah, why not?
I think we know who.
You're going to start something with your best friend, which is another sort of co-founder romance situation.
No comment.
No, I am talking about other things with other people, if you must know.
We're intrigued.
And I don't know if it's any of your business, quite frankly.
What's harder, managing employees or Natalie?
Is that a joke? I'd have
obviously employees.
I'd have to go with Natalie, hands down, no question, full stop.
I agree with that.
Natalie cannot be managed. You only have to manage yourself when talking to Natalie.
That is so well said.
I should have asked you for advice before starting this company.
I know.
Thanks so much, guys. I think that was super honest, transparent, and just a really valuable chat.